Well, welcome to the Heal With Us podcast. We are back with a special edition of breast cancer. We want to talk about our survivors, and I like to use the word thrivers too, because yes, they've survived it, but some of them are thriving now after it. Ufuoma, say hi to the people.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Glad to be here as always.
We have a wonderful special guest with us, Betsy Freeman. Hi, Betsy. Say hi to the people.
Hi, Ebony. Hi, everyone. My name is Betsy Freeman, and as of this past week, I am a 1-year survivor.
Wow, yay.
On October 4th of 2022, I had my final reconstruction surgery. So I say that it's 1 year since then. But I am a wife, a mother of two. I have a 14-year-old daughter and an almost 6-year-old little boy. Been married it'll be 20 years this November.
Yay again.
That goes.
Yes.
We are a Christian family, love Jesus, love the Lord, and do our best to take care of ourselves and help others along the way.
I want to start by asking the question, if you could just take us back to the moment you were diagnosed. What was going through your mind? What were some of the feelings that you had?
Okay, well, I think I need to back up just a hair to say that my family has a very strong history of breast cancer. My mother is a survivor. Her mother had breast cancer, both of my mother's sisters, and then one of my maternal cousins also. So for almost my whole life, it's been kind of this looming thing in the back of my mind of it's inevitable. Like I'm going to get it too. So when the actual phone call came that said, you have cancer, I don't think I was all that shocked, to be honest. But going backwards a little bit from that phone call, when I had to go back for a biopsy, because mine was found on a routine mammogram.
Okay.
They found a spot and they called me back.
Okay.
This was about the third time I had been called back on a routine mammogram. And all the times before, they would do the ultrasound and then they'd be like, oh, it's just dense tissue, you're fine, go on home. So when they called me back, I wasn't terribly concerned at first. But then when they said they saw something, and then I looked on the ultrasound, I saw it too.
Oh,
and that to me is probably more when reality sunk in than the actual phone call saying, yes, you have cancer. Because by that point, I think I probably already knew, if that makes sense. Because when I saw the spot on the ultrasound and then had to go back, like I think it was the next day, maybe I went back for a biopsy. That I think was when it hit me, because I was laying there on the table, I was on my side, and I was watching all of it in the ultrasound monitor. And I was watching them find the spot and then stick the needle in. I mean, they had numbed the area, but I was watching the needle go through, through my skin, through all the ultrasound stuff. You could see this, sharp metal object, go all the way through. I think that probably was worse than the actual phone call. Because just the biopsy person, I don't know if that's the radiologist or if that's, I don't know exactly which medical person that was doing that. I do know there was a nurse in the room and she was the one that held my hand.
Okay. Wow. That's awesome that you had that.
Yeah. So you had some family history, some biological factors, but what was your first response like after, you saw the needle, you felt it hit you? How did that Like, what feelings came about? Like, what was your response?
I think it was mostly okay, here we go. You know, like, it wasn't a total shock, but it was okay, here we go. I never did think, ooh, this is a death sentence. That was not something that ever crossed my mind. And I think that's because of my family history. Breast cancer isn't what killed anybody. Like, that's not what my grandmother died of. That wasn't what my aunt died of. That wasn't, my mother's still alive. Like that, once all the surgeries were done, everybody had been fine. So I never looked at it as a death sentence or anything.
Wow. Do you think that helped some? Like, not looking at it as a death sentence, do you think that helped keep you going?
I do.
Okay.
Because, and looking back over the course of all of it, once we got to the surgeries and the rough time I had recovering from the surgeries, that positive naivety, I guess is the best way to say it. I can say that was beneficial. They say ignorance is bliss, and sometimes it truly is.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. How was your support system? Like, was it important having one? Did you have one?
Yes, it was and is absolutely amazing. I have a good family system. My parents came and, kept the kids while Tom and I went to the hospital. That Tom's my husband. While Tom and I went to the hospital for the surgery, I have a wonderful neighbor who would take my kids when needed, especially the little one who's full of energy. He would go over and play with her kids, and she would, I'm going to take the kids to the park, and, just to kind of get him out of the house, and, things like that. The biggest support system came from my church family. Specifically, I'm in the choir at our church, and I'm an alto, and we sit in the back. We sit in the back row, and I say that to say that we have a nickname. They call us the back row babes.
I love it.
And my back row babes they're older than me. I think the one closest to my age is probably 13 to 15 years older than me. And that's the one that's closest to my age. The others are around that age or older than that. So these are mostly retired women or have always been stay-at-home mom types. And they immediately launched into anything and everything we can do for you. They're like, okay, they were my prayer support. They were my encouragement, especially because one of them is also a survivor.
Oh, good. Okay.
And so, and if not, then the others, like their mother had been through it, or their mother-in-law, or somebody else like that. And they launched into prayer support. They launched into, how can we help transport the kids from here to there? How can we, bring you food? How can, what else can we do to help?
Yeah. A good support system is definitely essential in anything in life, whether, having a baby, going through, having a history that you have to navigate through that's unexpected. Now, did you connect with any like support groups, whether survivors or just like any support groups in some capacity?
Specifically, no, because I had survivors that I knew and within my family and within the church. It wasn't anything official. So officially, no, but I did have people that I talked to that were, within my circle of friends, circle of influence, whatever, you know, how to word that I knew. And so I will say that I learned that you do also need to reach out, because which is important, because there were some that understood and would reach out to me and kind of, you know, be like, well, you know, I'm gonna go ahead and do this, and that for you. But that's not the norm for people. Most people don't, if they haven't been through something, they don't know what to help you with.
Right.
So you do have to speak up and say, hey, my daughter's going to need a ride from this. Can anybody help? You know, because people want to help, people are willing to help.
Yeah.
But not everyone knows how to help.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Now, I know you mentioned that, you know, you had your own support system within your family and circle. For someone who has just received a diagnosis, is this something you were encouraging? So if they don't have that support like you had in your family history?
I would definitely say start asking questions, because someone closer than you think has probably been through it, or has been through next to someone probably closer than you think. So you have to be able to speak up and not necessarily live your life totally open. I mean, it's one of those things that, you know, it's not really a taboo subject, but, you know, to go around talking about your breasts all day, you know, it's kind of, you know, you don't necessarily want to, you know, you may or may not want to post on social media or anything like that. But if you start talking to people, even if it's just asking for, you know, prayer support or anything, I have found over the years that then someone that you may or may not realize will come find you maybe after the fact. They may not be an out front kind of person, but they'll come to you and say, hey, I heard your prayer request, or, you know, hey, I heard you say that you're going through this. My mom had this, my sister had that, you know, and then you kind of start building from there.
Okay. So how would you say, I mean, thank God you didn't think it was a death sentence at the beginning, but, you know, a year after, how do you feel like it has changed, or has it changed any of your life perspectives, or priorities, or do you look at life a different way because of this?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not one of those people that's gonna say, you know, ooh, I've looked death in the face, and so now I'm gonna go climb a mountain and take up skydiving and, you know, things like that. But maybe a bit more of cherish the moments that you have, and also understanding and the realization of what we just talked about, you know, of asking for help when you need it, those kind of lessons, you know. And I will say, I learned a lot just this weekend in Atlanta was the breast cancer 2-day walk.
Yes. And how many miles? Tell them how many miles you walk. The people need to know.
30 miles total. It was 20 miles on Saturday, and then you got a little bit of rest, and you had to get up the next morning and walk another 10.
Wow.
And
that's awesome.
I will admit that both days, the last 5 miles were the hardest. It became that mental striving, I guess, for a better word, of literally just put one foot in front of the other. You will get there.
Yeah.
You can do this. It's hard and it hurts. Yes. You know, which, you know, in life, there are things that are hard and that hurt.
Yeah.
But you just keep moving forward. And some of it was uphill and some of it was downhill.
Yes, in Georgia, yes.
But at the same time, you just had to keep putting one foot in front of the other. And it's just those small steps that build and make a difference, because had I stopped at mile 15, yes, there would be, no shame in that, to know my limits and to stop. But at the same time, to be able to stand proudly and say, no, I did all 30, it hurt and it was hard, but I did it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was even talking to a friend last night who's going through her own set of issues, with some stuff going on in her life. And she had a meeting yesterday that was going to be really hard. And I was like, it's just one more step.
Yeah.
It's just one more step, take this step and then keep moving. Take this next step and then keep moving.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow.
That's amazing. I mean, you're describing a walk, but it feels like you're describing life.
Yeah. Wow.
It really was the year journey of, surgeries and recovery, that, that's one thing. But this weekend really was a lot more of the metaphor on life of, yes, some of it's uphill. Yes, some of it's downhill. Yes, some of it hurts. But you just keep moving. You take a break when you need it, refuel when you need it, but you just, and I had friends along the way. So, the whole weekend probably was more the metaphor than the past year itself. Not to downplay the year and the surgeries and the physical recovery, but it was much more physical. This weekend was much more emotional, spiritual. I don't really know what the right word is. But it was definitely much more, it was physically hard, but it was definitely much more metaphorical in, just keep moving and standing with those who are standing with you, whether you knew them or not. There was a lady that I walked with for a couple of blocks because I had seen her. They had the survivors line up first and kind of lead out the walk on Saturday morning to start everything going. And she and I ended up walking next to each other. So then at the very, very end, she found me and saw me and we high-fived each other. And, I didn't know her. She didn't know me, but we recognized each other and high-fived each other and, encouraged each other.
Yeah. Wow. And that's probably what a lot of us, when people are struggling with whatever, a high five, a smile, a little encouragement goes a long way, because we don't know what people are going through. Wow, now that right there, keep putting one foot in front of the other. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It really was. I do have one story I want to share about one of those back row babes. And it was during the recovery after my first surgery, and just talking about a support system. I want to brag on this one friend who all she did in the moment was hold my hand. But what I was going through at the time, like, that meant probably more to me at that point than just about anything else. So after my initial mastectomy, my skin did not react well to the surgery. It did not. My breast surgeon has a reputation of scraping it all, and breast tissue and fat tissue all look the same. And so she just scraped it all, and my skin did not like that at all. And in fact, the day after the surgery, when the surgeon came in, she took one look at me and she was like, okay, your skin is awful. It took a beating. You need to go to the hyperbarics chambers right now to help out with healing. I'm ordering 2 weeks in the hyperbarics chambers every day for 2 hours. And
Can you explain what the hyperbarics chamber is real quick, just so that people who aren't with it, sorry.
That's okay. So hyperbarics helps with healing. It's a pressurized chamber, And most of the people that I met in the hyperbarics treatments were diabetics who have a hard time with wound healing. Hyperbarics, because of the pressurization, helps with blood flow. Okay. And helps with oxygen levels and all that kind of stuff, and just gets the oxygen and the blood flow to where it needs to be to aid in healing. Okay. And so they do a lot with, like I said, diabetics and wound healing. They do a lot with radiation patients who the radiation will burn you and burn your skin. And the hyperbarics helps aid with that. So because my skin there was nothing left behind it. There was no fat. There was no anything left to nourish the skin. My skin did help in healing. It's also, you're emotionally and physically drained from all of this, surgery and everything else, and everything hurts and all the things. Well, hyperbarics wants to document, where you started to where you ended up. So they take pictures of the wounds at the beginning, and then a couple of days later, they'll take pictures of the wounds again. And then the next week, they'll take pictures of the wounds again. So my husband took me to the first initial meeting, chamber session, appointment. I guess that's probably the better word for it. You couldn't find the right word. So he was the one sitting next to me when they took the initial pictures. And I thought, oh, okay, they're just going to do like a before and after. So I wasn't expecting pictures again until, the end, 2 weeks later. And because I had to go every day, again, these back row babes, when they found that out, and I couldn't drive because I was still on heavy medication and I couldn't move my arms because of the surgery, like they immediately launched into a text group of, well, I can take this day and I can take that day and I can do this. And these women dropped what they were doing. And they came and picked me up. The appointment was a half an hour away. I had to change clothes into a hospital gown, get on the table, and then sit in the hyperbaric chamber for 2 hours, then come out, get dressed again, and then come back home. So that's 3 hours out of someone's day. And these women did that. They just dropped whatever they were doing or brought it with them. Some brought a laptop, one brought knitting, they brought books, and they took 3 hours out of their day every day to take me to these appointments. I say all that to say, it was day 5 of my treatment, I didn't know that they were having to do pictures again. And by this point, things are settling down. I'm, starting to regain my emotional state. And the thought of them, this was, your breasts are, part of your femininity, and now mine are gone. And that emotional state of that, and then everybody, looking and poking and prodding and, just here, let's just open your shirt and, let me do this. And they were like, here, let me take a picture of this. And I was so overwhelmed, and embarrassed wasn't the word. It was almost more like a mortification, like, not dehumanizing, but almost, because it became so medical or whatever. And I didn't know I was going to have this done that day, that they were going to have to take pictures. And like I said, the first time they did it, my husband was right there with me. So it's one thing for, my husband to sit there with me and hold my hand. I didn't know I was having to have this done. And my friend Jill sat there, pulled the chair up next to my chair, and just sat there and held my hand. She looked at me. She told me she loved me. She told me I was beautiful, and just held my hand while they took these clinical pictures that, feel so mortifying. She just held my hand.
That's beautiful.
Wow. Yeah. We all definitely need our back row babes.
Yes, we all need some back row babes. Oh, my goodness. I am not going to cry.
Now, Betsy, are there any misconception or stigma surrounding breast cancer that you want to, tackle to address right now with our listeners?
That just because it's relatively common doesn't mean it's not a big deal. Just because one person's spot may be bigger than another, or one person had to do chemo and radiation, but praise the Lord, I didn't have to do either. My surgery got everything. Wow. I didn't have to do chemo or radiation. I had to do the hyperbaric chambers, but my surgery got everything. I was declared cancer-free after the surgery, but it's still a journey. It's still relevant. Like, whatever anybody's going through, we always tend to compare ourselves to someone else. Well, mine's not as bad as, or somebody's always got it worse. And yes, in a sense, that helps keep things in perspective in your own mind and help keep you a bit sane, but that you can't belittle somebody's journey just because theirs might have been smaller or different. Because it can always be compounded in a different way. I mean, I have a friend who's she just finished her chemo. And she's had her surgery and she just finished her chemo, and then she's got to do radiation. She doesn't have, she only has one son, and he's already, I think, like 18 or 20. I have, my son was 4 when I had my surgery, and praise God, he hopefully won't remember much. Right. Like, I have a t-shirt that has a pink ribbon on it that says I won. And he said, "What'd you win, Mommy?" He doesn't really understand, but just because somebody's journey may seem bigger or harder, it doesn't diminish somebody else's journey.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's true.
We all have our story.
And it also, it's not just a female thing. There are men who get breast cancer. It's way more common in women, but at the end of the walk this weekend, they had all the survivors up on stage, and everybody walked up one by one and said their name and how many years they were a survivor. And the very last person was a man who came up and said his name and how many years he was a survivor. Wow. And I thought that was a poignant representation of, yes, it's a minority, but it's still relevant too.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Wow. Wow. And I know you kind of talked about a memorable moment during this journey. Any other moments that kind of stood out?
Those were kind of the big ones. I mean, Jill holding my hand during that one picture session is probably one of the most poignant ones.
Yeah.
And then this weekend really became more than I expected it to be. And it almost became a closure for all of it. Because it was a year to the week.
I mean, that's like, whoa. Yeah. Wow. So what tips would you give? I know you gave a couple. Look, I'm taking notes. One is, just move one foot in front of the other. The other one you said was ask help. But any other tips that you would give people who are maybe just starting their journey, or they're in the middle of it, or they've been declared cancer-free? Any tips that you could give?
Be willing to share, because you never know who you're going to encourage, and you never know who's listening. But I think probably the biggest tip would be for everyone else on the outside. Don't be afraid to step in and almost not force yourself upon a friend, but just say, if you think that they're the type of person, they're like, no, I got this, I'm fine. Start with something like, you know what? I made a double batch of whatever, and I've got one in the freezer. Can I bring this over and you can just put it in your freezer? When you feel like you need it, you can take it out of your freezer. That way there's no pressure on them to feel like, oh, I have to have a meal train right now. I have to, do all these things right now. And I have to write thank you notes and accept all this stuff from people. Just be like, you know what? I was thinking of you.
Yeah.
Or even something as simple as, I remember when my father-in-law passed away and people were bringing food to the family, somebody brought paper products. They were like, I know you've got a lot of people in and out of your house. Here's a pack of toilet paper, some, some paper towels, plastic cups, paper plates. I was at the store. I grabbed some extras. I know you've got a lot of people in and out. Here's a bag of paper products. Wow. It's not anything that's going to go bad. It's not anything that's going to, really get in anybody's way. And it's something that you can do.
Yeah.
I also got letters in the mail and cards from people I didn't even know very well. So just don't be afraid to almost insert yourself even in a small way, because those small ways add up.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. Thank you so much, Betsy, for sharing your story. This has been great. I get a nugget every time we interview someone. And to put your foot in front of the other, that one's gonna go a long way with me. That's gonna be my new motto to get through this. One in front of the other. Don't worry about anything else, just one in front of the other. So thank you.
Well, thank you, ladies. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Well, guys, as always, Heal With Us, come back. Bye.
Bye.
To reach us with questions or comments, email us at healwithus@atlantatreatmentcenter.org.